Welcome to Triumphant Over Trauma, where resilience reigns and women rewrite their stories of victory after trauma. I'm Gina, your guide on this empowering journey. With a mission to help women overcome trauma, I'm here to inspire you to cultivate a positive mindset, embrace self-love, and find peace. Join me as we celebrate strength, reclaim power, and triumph over adversity together. They said happily ever after, but they didn't say what to do when it all falls apart. When the papers are signed, the silence is loud and you're left picking up the shattered pieces of what used to be your everything. Divorce doesn't just break a vow. It breaks open your identity, your routine, your dreams, and sometimes your spirit. But here's the truth, and I need you to hear me deep. You may be divorced, but you are not defeated. This episode is your reminder that this ending is not your failure. It's your rebirth. We're going to talk about the raw, the real, and the rise. We're going to reclaim your voice, your power, and the parts of you that got lost in the chaos. Because this isn't where it ends. This is where you begin again. Louder, clearer, and more unapologetically you than ever before. So grab your coffee, your journal, or just your brave beating heart, and let's dive in. No one wakes up and says, I think I am going to get divorced today. Divorce, much like addiction, is an unplanned event in life, sometimes necessary that further saves us from the demons at play that we may not consciously be aware of at first. As time unfolds, the things that were once hidden from us become a scream so loud that no one can ignore, not even the ones who have withstood the test of time, sometimes for years. I will never forget the day that I got the call that I had just lost my best friend to a murder-suicide. That day will forever be ingrained in my brain for as long as I live. No one really knew what she was dealing with behind closed doors, because what was seen in the eye of the public was something totally different, until what was hidden behind the closed doors became viewable in the eyes of the public on the news. The abuse that she had been through and the darkness that she tried so hard to escape, even an EPO could not save her. She was only 21 at the time and I was 23. Both of us were in college and learning our ways around the world, sometimes together and other times apart. I had just recently seen her at Subway as a group of our friends were getting together to hang out. I was not expecting the call that I received late in the evening on that warm August night in 2003. It was one that I would never forget. I would tell my parents about the call that I received and follow it with, "That will not happen to me," fully believing that in my heart and soul, until I met him. I had met him through a former friend of mine. She had dated his friend previously and they were working on getting back together. I had been asked to go with her as I was along for the ride, or should I say drive, since I ended up being the driver. Once we arrived, things began to unfold. He was one of 3 guys that lived in the house and appeared to be the most responsible one there. I was working as a dialysis tech at the time and navigating the world of divorce. This divorce was between my parents who had been married for 40 years. Life to me was very different at the time, so I was doing my best to move forward and handle my emotions from the fallout of their ongoing divorce. I was single and had not been dating anyone for a period of months. With everything I had going on, I still had an open heart and was willing to welcome new people in my life. Time continued to move forward, and so did we. Everything was beautiful in the beginning. There was a general excitement in the air, especially when the weekends were drawing closer, as that was when we were able to spend time together. Due to us living an hour apart and working different schedules, we did the best we could to make our schedules mesh. There were times I would even drive to him after I got off work at 8 p.m. just to spend time with him until 4:30 a.m., when I would have to get up and drive back to work over an hour away. I started noticing things were changing when he would complain about the things that I wore and request that I change. The times when I would drive in and he would want me to pick out his clothes for work the next day. The over-excessive concern about his appearance and how if one thing was off, everything was off. And not going out with our other groups of friends if he decided not to go. Our relationship still moved forward, and in time the lease would end at that current house, and we would decide to move in together and purchase our own home. While things were not perfect at the leased house with his roommates, they would become a nightmare when we moved into the new house, but not at first. The newness that came with our move would overshadow the poison that was behind closed doors and out of the eyes of the public, including family. In the realm of the public, the relationship was well put together. He was attentive, loving, and caring, charming even. This was not the case behind closed doors. It was his needs and wants that mattered the most. If I did not behave in a way that he approved of, I was ignored and affection was withheld. As long as it was only us or the people that he invited over, there were no issues. At this point, I had transferred my dialysis tech position closer to home and had even started to take classes to become a nurse. Valentine's Day had just come and went, and while everyone else was saying that he was going to propose to me, I just didn't see it like they did. Well, they were right. He did propose, and he did it in a way that everyone could see and applaud him for his efforts, as he knew this was not me. I prefer to celebrate life-changing events in a more private and close manner. After all, quality time and touch are my love languages. Being in a room full of strangers was overwhelming for me as I had looked around and saw everyone applauding. Yet, I was cautious. None of them knew what I was dealing with behind closed doors like I did. While I should have been on cloud 9, I was not. I was watching the situation unfold in front of me and allowing the space and time to occur with the hopes that things would get better and I would start to feel safe. That never happened. Instead, I would learn just how resilient and strong I really was in the events that were yet to occur in my life. Not long after this, while I was still working as a dialysis tech and going to school, I found out that I was pregnant. This was about 6 months after we got engaged. I was strongly against rushing to finish the planning of our wedding to run down the aisle to make it look like we were covering up our pregnancy. So I stated, I will not waddle down the aisle to make it look like we are covering up our pregnancy. We will wait until after the baby comes and then get married. Looking back on it, I guess I should have known at the time that things were shifting in our relationship, and it started when I tested positive for pregnancy. I was alone. The test came back with one solid line and a half-faint second line. What in the fuck does this actually mean? I contacted every number on that box because I knew I could not tell him that I was and then not end up being pregnant because of all the names that I would have gotten called. I never got an answer from all the numbers that I called. I ended up calling him and telling him what happened and asked him to pick up one that actually had the words pregnant or not pregnant. He did. I took the second test, and before I could lay the test on a flat surface, it had popped positive. Concerned, I asked him if he was going to stay or leave us, the baby and I. He called me a few names like silly and something else and said, "Of course I'll stay." To be honest, my heart did not believe him. My pregnancy was spent much like the first pregnancy test that I took. Alone. He was there for the doctor's visits much like his mother. It was like the visit was solely for them, never mind me and my unborn child. Pregnancy was not a smooth road for me, or our child. I ended up getting both stomach bugs, the 48-hour and the 72-hour one, back to back. Had it not been for my dad being by my side, I do not know where I would have ended up. It was after experiencing the 72-hour bug and having intense lower back pain that my dad called my OB and asked for some recommendations to help support me. I had never experienced back labor before this, but this certainly felt like it was it. At this point, I was only 13 weeks along. Shortly after getting over the stomach bugs, my first ultrasound was scheduled. It was during that first ultrasound that I found out that I was having twins. I laid on the cold, hard surface of the ultrasound bed and stared at the screen while I saw two heads resting on one another. I smiled, and in this moment, my soul was at peace. He was still sitting on the other side of the room up against the wall when the sonographer said, "I'm sure she would like you next to her right now." He decided to move over. Due to my pregnancy being high risk, I ended up being pulled from working on the dialysis floor as my blood pressure was starting to rise, and no one was willing to help transfer my patients to the chair. Out of safety for my babies and I asked for a letter from my provider stating that I needed help moving patients over. I would switch and put their patient on the machine while they could help my patient move over. This would not happen for very long as I incurred negative fallout from the team of people that I worked with. It was after hearing, "Your pregnancy is not my responsibility," that I requested my OB pull me from the floor out of safety for my kids and I. After this happened, things would also change at home. I was told to be on bed rest at home to increase my protein and elevate my legs to decrease my swelling and fluid retention. The latter of the two happened. The first, not so much. I was expected to have a clean house 100% of the time, a freshly cooked meal when he came home from work, laundry folded, and his work clothes ironed, and everything else that he could think of to text me during the day, like paying the bills. Even recalling this now, I shake my head. This is not an equal partnership. It's more like a 1950s marriage where the woman runs the household, very loosely, and the man as the provider. This is not what I signed up for at all. Still, I did it in an effort to keep my stress level down, not walk on eggshells, and keep the peace. It was at this point that he would also start to travel more for work. He was barely even home, and attending OB appointments with me started to become few and far between. When he was gone on business, I could barely get a hold of him. I would leave messages and very rarely get a call back. Thankfully, my dad was still close and would come to me at a moment's notice if I needed him. By this time, we knew that we were already having boys. My heart still melts as I recall that moment. I continued to navigate the world of pregnancy alone with the number one priority of keeping my boys safe. I ended up finding out that my fluid levels were really off and the boys were showing signs of twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. This would bump me up to being seen once a week. Despite the fact that he knew I had appointments weekly, he left out of the country on business to Canada during my 27th week of pregnancy. I already had an appointment to be seen, but little did I know I would end up in the hospital for another amniotic fluid reduction, my 4th out of 5th, and would go into active labor. Again, it was my dad by my side when they told me that if they could not get my labor to stop, that they would be taking my boys emergently. The viability rate was not good. I have fought so hard to save my kids that now I may lose them. Thankfully, my labor stopped. This was the beginning of 43 days in the hospital. He was still out of the country on business for another week or more. I continued to stay in the hospital while my dad helped me and took care of things at home. By the time he returned back from Canada, so much had changed, including the way that I managed situations and created solutions. The boys made it safely into the world in April of 2007, 11 days after I turned 27. Who was by my side when I delivered via C-section because my body started to shut down and could no longer hold my pregnancy? My dad. Time moved forward. Both of my boys had to stay in the NICU for some time due to them being early. This was something that I was afraid of, but a true blessing in disguise as it would help me to put them on a schedule. Being a new mom of 2, this would make things so much easier on me as I had decided to breastfeed. I had thought that after our boys had arrived that things would get better and that he would be the father that I had hoped he would be. This was not the case. What I was expected to do when I was pregnant was now being expected of me as I recovered, even while on pain meds because of my surgery and blood pressure medications. The boys and I also experienced pre-eclampsia along with the twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. I was pretty much up around the clock as I was breastfeeding every few hours, which was also completed alone in the overnight hours. I became a pro of feeding 2 babies and also hooking myself up to the breast pump and pumping while they were eating. Life had completely changed for me, but for him, it still seemed to be the same. Strange in a way. With all the pressure that I had on me to get everything done, I still felt guilty if things outside the home were not done. To the point I got on the riding lawnmower one day and cut the grass. I thought that he would be happy because it was done and he would not have to do it. Instead, I got a 30-minute lecture about grass clippings being in the road. I never cut the grass again at that house. With everything else that was going on, we were still planning a wedding. Still, even with time passing, I was not 100% sold on this. I thought that maybe it was because of my parents being divorced not too long before that, and maybe that was where my fears lied. I should have trusted my gut more than I did. We ended up getting married in October of 2008, and our boys were in the wedding with us. What should have been a beautiful day became a very vivid nightmare. After being walked down the aisle by my dad, who was reminding me to smile, I was at the altar with him. I didn't notice anything was really off until I sat down next to him and looked at his eyes. Completely bloodshot. I asked him, "What is wrong with your eyes? Too much on the bottle or issues with your contacts?" He lied and said, "An issue with my contacts." I looked at him and said, "You know that's a fucking lie." I'm sure our videographer got an earful in that moment when they edited our wedding. To be honest, I actually thought about pulling a runaway bride at that moment. But as I looked over the audience, my eyes narrowed in on 2 people, my sons. Maybe I can make this work, I thought. Despite all of the changes that occurred in my life and my boys being 1.5 years old, I decided to enroll back into school to become a nurse. I already had a bachelor's degree in psychology, but with everything that I had learned from my dad about nursing, I felt it was the right next step for me. With the stress that I was already under, this laid on another dimension. But it was different because I was not only learning to take care of others, I was also learning to take care of my family. This was something that I wanted to do with every fiber of my being. After all, I had already been in the medical field since I was 21. This was another addition to me I had already started to build. Nursing school was made much harder for me as he would pick fights with me that lasted all night the night before I had any exams. I'd show up exhausted and could barely think as my mind would race on the days of my exams. What will I get when I get home? How will he treat me? Will I even be allowed to sleep? I got very good at quieting the aftermath that went on in my head so that I could finish my nursing exams or whatever task that lay before me that I needed to complete. Later, I would end up finishing my ADN with a 4.0 despite the hell that I incurred from someone who claimed to love me. I would find a job in the OR after graduation on the first shift, and enroll myself again in school to attain my BSN, which I also graduated with a 4.0 GPA with summa cum laude. Despite all obstacles that were presented on my path, I never quit. As hard as I tried, nothing was good enough and would ever be. A month and a half after I had our boys, I found myself on the phone talking to an ex of his and explaining why he left her because he was not willing to do it. It was during that call that I found out some things that were off about his timeline of events. I said nothing. Later, I would ask him about the situation when we were on the way to see his family with our boys, and he would tell me that he was dating both of us at the same time. Internally, I shook my head and thought, this is now coupled with you kissing someone else when we were first starting to date, coming home inebriated shortly after we got married while going MIA that day, and leaving our sons to question where you were and if you were coming home, and never calling us on your business trips, which has now increased greatly. He was never home. Things continued to spiral downward. The insults became worse. The silent treatments went from days to weeks. Being told to shut up during UK basketball games was a normal thing, and withholding love and affection was a constant unless he wanted it. With everything that I had been through alone, I started to take care of myself and the boys and not even include him in the picture. I had managed this long without him. Who's to say that I could not continue to do this without him completely? The calls were coming in repeatedly, and while he would say it was business, I knew otherwise. He was rarely home. For once in my life, I realized that when he was not at home, things were peaceful. Instead of being afraid about whether I would hear from him or not, I became glad when I did not. We decided to go our separate ways first by sleeping in different bedrooms. From my standpoint, if we were able to work on our issues as individuals, then we could come back together as an even stronger couple. If I did not see some slight improvement on how our relationship was going, I was prepared to sleep in another bedroom at the start of the year in 2013. That is exactly what happened. Although I had planned to sleep alone in another room on an air mattress and leave the door open should my boys need me, I did not plan for the things that would occur next. I normally went to bed earlier because my schedule required me to be up before him. However, there were several nights before I would finally get away that I woke up with him on top of me and doing some sort of weird movement. There was no consent here. Waking up to someone on top of you while you had been sleeping is a mind-boggling and blowing experience, especially when things are going so poorly. In the days that followed, looking at him was getting harder and harder. In fact, I did not feel any love for him. All I felt was disgust. He would act as though nothing happened, but I knew otherwise. Until I was finally able to get away, my sleep was broken, as I would lay awake wondering if I needed to protect myself from him every night. We would try couples counseling, especially after he tried to rip the steering wheel out of my hands while I was driving with him and the boys to get back home. While I was somewhat hopeful, that ended rather abruptly and shattered the world for my boys. He did not like what he heard at counseling and told me that I poisoned them against him, so he said to me with our boys in the room, "I will not be doing couples counseling anymore." It was at that time that I decided to continue counseling on my own. Again, another blessing in disguise. During one session, she said to me, "You always state what he wants. What do you want?" Calmly, I stated, "I want a divorce." This was the first time those words had left my lips. Shortly after that, I began looking for a home of my own that's safe for my boys and I, that would also put them in the best school district possible. I found one. It was shortly after finding the house that I would be met with having a discussion with him that we would need to file for separation so that I could get a first-time homeowner's loan. Scared, I did it anyways. He had already told me that he wanted me to move out and for us to stay married while coming up with an agreement regarding our boys. He did not want any lawyers involved. When I had the discussion about the separation, not yet a divorce, he said, "What about taxes?" He did not say, "I want you to stay and for all of us to be a family." To him, money was more important, as I would later recall him blowing through his paycheck and mine leaving no money for bills to be paid or gas in the cars. There were several times when the account was in red and when the card was declined when I was trying to put gas in the car with the boys with me. Yet I would get yelled at when the bills were late, and later on I would learn that while my paychecks were going into the account, he never put my name on the account like he told me that he did. Had I had not been given the password to the account to pay the bills, I would have had zero access to my money that I had put in the account. The discussion of separation would soon turn to divorce after I moved out with the boys in the summer of 2013. In the fall of 2013, with my divorce still going on, I would also lose my dad. Divorce has a certain stigma that comes with it, and that is nasty, dirty, and ugly. You feel like a failure even though the things that happen to make it occur may have been through no fault of your own. Divorce gives you a way to be able to speak your truth and openly state what you have held silent for so long. Through the twists and turns of divorce, you learn more about yourself and further polish the diamond that you already are. While I wish I could say that divorce is an easy process, for me it was not. Turns out that divorcing a narcissist is a nightmare all of its own. Oftentimes your brain feels like it was taken out of the wash cycle that was stuck on spin as you fight hard to regain balance and separate a reality that was marred in a fantasy created by the one who you thought loved you the most. I felt like a failure for so long because it did not work. Even though I went above and beyond to make it work, nothing I tried was good enough, much like our entire relationship. At times, you just have to learn to let go so that you can begin to break free. Instead of getting an outpouring of support when I broke my silence and the divorce was underway, I was met with demeaning questions, rude looks, and even blame as to what I was doing that made me receive that kind of treatment. In any way, shape, or form, abuse is never acceptable. Again, I fought this battle alone. My dad was there for me, but because of the internal emotions that I was battling about me, I kept this part of my life private from him. Dealing with the process of divorce and the outpouring of negativity from others can be hard. Some feel like a marriage is a one-and-done approach to life or a till death do us part. The thing about it is, in a marriage that has abuse intertwined with it, death may occur sooner than later. In the eyes of the abuse, the abuser gets tired of their charade or the survivor becomes exhausted by the abuse. Divorce, in this case, is the best option of all. During the process of divorce, you may question if you did things the right way, especially if you have kids involved. You may also look at yourself differently in the mirror and believe that you are not worthy of love at all. This is a lie that you are selling yourself. Do not believe it. In the aftermath of leaving a marriage, especially one with a narcissist, you will start to replay the things you went through during the relationship. This may cause you to further doubt yourself, lose your self-confidence, and stop providing the self-care that you need in order to move forward. When you stop providing the care that you need, you are also feeding into what you were being brainwashed to believe, that you are not lovable, worthy, or deserving of care, concern, and affection. Falling into this trap will not help you, especially if you are in the middle of divorce and fighting in the courts. This is the time when you will have to speak up and stand up for yourself because no one knows your situation like you do. Taking time to reconnect with yourself is pivotal to creating a strong and sturdy foundation to thrive on. You have already survived so much. Why are you willing to give up now? This is your turning point of taking back your power and regaining all that you have lost, and then some. You are not half of a person without them. You are a whole person by yourself. Finding out who you are and what you need is also important during the process. You have to know what you need in order to state it out loud to yourself and share it in the courts when you are asked to do so. If you have kids involved, you will need to be able to state what they need and what is in their best interest. Learning to be able to speak from an I perspective first makes it much easier to speak from a we perspective that includes your kids. The process to finding yourself again is different for everyone, much like the healing journey. It's individually based. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach. The path that works well for you may not work well for others, and that's okay. Do not change it unless you feel like you need to. Generally, the divorce process goes something like this: lawyers, mediation, court. There are a bunch of other steps that unfold during the process, along with mountains and mountains of paperwork that needs to be filled out and addressed. Everything will cost you money, including sending an email or just having a phone call with your lawyer. It becomes a very costly process. This is when you will learn to address all of your major concerns in one email so you only get charged once. Take copious notes when you're speaking with your lawyer and meeting with your soon-to-be ex and his lawyer, and creating quiet time and space to be able to review everything that has happened recently. This will help you to stay on track, state what you need to say, and move forward with a fast-paced process. If something is said and you do not understand, ask for clarity. Do not go back to your basic answer to keep the peace and just nod and smile. That will not help you here. Instead, it will be taken as you understand and that you are in agreement with what was said, even if you do not. Sleep is beyond important here. I cannot stress this enough. Creating a sleep routine will extremely be helpful here, and the do not disturb function on your phone will become your best friend. Going through the divorce process can cause anyone to dissociate. This is normal as your mind is working to protect you in these moments of sheer overwhelm and emotional paralysis. Just do your best in these moments and remember to take notes, because you may not remember what was said later, so it's best to write it down while it is occurring. If you must talk with your soon-to-be ex during the proceedings, do it in written form only, text or email. If there is a phone call, then record it. You will need to keep everything, as these will work to be your supporting documents. Keep a date and time log of anything that you are doing to provide care for your kids. Even if you gave them one French fry at 11:29 a.m. on May 17th, 2025. You bought something. Keep the receipts. There was a nasty conversation that went down, including it on the log. Date, time, and what kind of conversation it was. Supporting documents, saved emails, text, or recorded calls. Setting boundaries and saying no is now no longer negotiable. It is now a non-negotiable. For years, you have been the people pleaser and the doormat, and this has brought to your doorstep disrespect, lack of concern, lack of love, and most importantly, harm. In these moments, you have not been able to be who you have always been meant to be. Instead, you are acting as who you should have been in that moment, as a way to protect yourself and survive through potentially some of the most darkest moments of your life. Creating, setting, and maintaining healthy boundaries is in your best interest to allow you to continue to move forward to a world that is full of love, joy, happiness, and respect. These will be needed especially in the realm of the courts as you step forward and start to openly share all that you have hidden for so long. If you do not have boundaries in place, they will be repeatedly violated by the repeated text blow-ups, hateful messages, and malicious messages such as me receiving the obituary of my dad during the time of the monthly anniversaries of his death. Always remember that no response or silence is still a response, but keep the message anyways, as it shows proof of what you have been dealing with, even while the proceedings of the courts. Narcissists have a great way of influencing the courts with their business mentality while making it look like you are the crazy one. If you are not able to settle amongst the lawyers, the next step is usually mediation. This is where you will meet with your lawyer, your soon-to-be ex, and their lawyer with the middle person, the mediator. This can be a rather grueling and unsettling process if you have never been in this space before. Do your best to stay calm, state your needs for yourself and your kids, and listen to what is being shared. Take notes so that you can revisit later. Do not try to interject, as this will get you separated into different rooms. This is what happened in my case. Due to the fact that I was in the OR and I had a call schedule, this was used against me. He had been blowing my phone up one night when he knew I was on call and that I could not turn my phone off. I spoke up for myself when this was brought up in mediation and calmly said that he knew I was on call and was blowing me up on my phone. He replied with, "Well, you could have turned your phone off." To which I replied, "You know that I can't turn off my phone when I am on call." At that point, they separated us. They never questioned his on-call schedule of 365 days a year. Yes, that means he was on call every day of the year. I was told by my lawyer that I needed to calm down. I was not upset. I stated a fact. Of course, this was the same lawyer that when I told her that I was being abused, I was handed a pamphlet and told to call the number on the back. Abuse never stops, and it certainly will not stop when you say, "Can you stop your abuse for a moment? I need to call the number on this pamphlet for help." I would strongly advise you that if you are getting ready to go through a divorce, to interview your lawyer like you are hiring them. Because you are. If you see that they have never worked with women who have been abused, please leave at your closest exit and seek a new one before you even pay the retainer. Your first consultation should always be free. In this space, you are being asked by your life to show up differently. While you may not have wanted this situation to occur, it is here to stay, and so are you. You are not here to be the bigger person. You're here to be the healed one and to help your children become the same. If no one has told you today, you didn't fail. You freed yourself. You walked through the fire, through the grief, through the gut-wrenching goodbyes, and you came out on the other side, singed maybe, scarred maybe, but still standing. And that's power. That's courage. That's proof that your story is far from over. This divorce, it's not your downfall. It's your daring inner victory over ruin, choosing elevation. Yes, around here, that's what divorce really means. You're not just healing, you're rising, you're rebuilding, and you're reclaiming. Reclaiming love, starting with the kind that lives in your own reflection. Learning how to trust again, not just others, but yourself. Keeping your heart wide open, not because you owe anyone your softness, but because you deserve joy when you're ready to let it in. And until someone comes along who deserves a seat beside your peace, you get to fall wildly in love with your own damn company. Queen energy only. So the love story didn't go how you hoped. The vows were broken, the future you imagined got ripped away. And now you're standing there shattered, shaken, and wondering, what now? Now, my love, you must rise. This week's episode cracked the silence wide open, but if you're ready to go deeper, to stop just surviving and start reclaiming your life, then my course, Finding Direction from Within, was made for you. This isn't a surface level pep talk. This is a guided journey back to you, the you that you lost in the chaos, the you who knows her worth, the you who trusts her voice, the you who is building something sacred from the ashes. Whether you're taking this journey solo with a DIY version, or you're ready to work side by side with me in a more intimate container, this course will teach you how to rebuild your self-worth from the inside out, set boundaries that honor your peace, learn to trust again, starting with you, keep your heart open without losing your power, and create a life that feels like home, with or without a partner. Because here's the truth. You were never defeated. You were redirected. And now it's time to find your direction from within. Click the link in the show notes or visit www.bodyelementsmindelevation.com to enroll today. Let's turn your pain into power together. Thank you for being here with me today, for showing up for yourself, for breathing through the hard parts, for just being present. That alone, that's healing. If this episode moved you, even a little, please follow the show, leave a review, and share it with a friend who needs this message. Because none of us heal in isolation. We heal in community. And I'm honored to be a part of yours. You are still here, and that matters more than you know. You are loved. Keep rising. Until next time, you may be divorced, but never ever are you defeated. This is Gina, signing off. Thank you for tuning in to Triumphant Over Trauma, where resilience prevails and women rewrite their stories of victory after trauma. Remember, healing is a journey, not a destination. Keep embracing your strength, cultivating resilience, and shining your light bright. You are capable of triumphing over any challenge life throws your way. Until next time, keep rising and thriving. You've got this.